Hey guys, Mr. Bowman here. Today's learning objective is in yellow. I've circled the key part. We are learning to split a total up by a given ratio. And I'm just doing a bit of a squiggle to check my pen's working. So this video, this is the part of ratios that you're actually going to use in your real life. It's not uncommon to have a total. In our case, we've got 20 apples that we're dealing with. You may have different amounts. It may be blueberries. Maybe it's candy from Halloween. Maybe it relates to something to do with your work. Maybe it's the profits from a partnership. They get split up depending on the partners. So what we're looking here is, how do we do this? How do we find some strategies? And we're going to get straight into some examples. So these apples, we're going to split them up in two ways. So the first way, we're going to deal with Alex and Ben again. Let's say Alex and Ben, they have worked evenly this time around. So we're going to split it up of a ratio for 1 to 1. And what that means is they get the exact same amount of apples. We give Alex an apple, Ben gets one. We give Alex another apple, Ben gets another one. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off with by thinking of our fractions. So what fraction of the apples is Alex going to get? So we add up our two parts. Our total is going to be 2. So Alex's one is going to be 2. And his portion of the ratio is that 1. So based on that, Alex is going to get 1/2 of the apples. And Ben also going to get 1/2 of the apples because there's still 2 and he's got the 1 over there. So now that we've done that, let's have a think of Alex only to start off with. So Alex is having 1/2 of the apples. So we're going to go 20 apples times 1/2. You can use that in the calculator, or if you're not confident with fractions, you could have done 20 times 0.5. And don't forget, 0.5 is the fraction equivalent of that fraction, or the decimal equivalent of that fraction. And when you put that into your calculator, you're going to get 10 apples. So that means, 10 apples for Alex. So Alex is getting 10 apples. This time around here, even though we've got Ben's fraction, we don't actually need to use Ben's fraction. What we're going to do is we're going to do the 20 apples minusing the 10 apples, which don't forget we gave to Alex. So the leftover amount is going to be Ben's portion, and that's 10 apples for Ben. And this makes sense. So both of them are getting 10 apples and 10 apples, and we said that at the beginning they're splitting it evenly. They both should be getting the same amount of apples. So that was the nice example. Let's think of a crueler, a bit meaner example. So let's say maybe it was actually Ben who was the one who did all the work. He thought Alex was, maybe being a bit lazy, wasted his time. So let's say Alex and Ben. So Alex and Ben, let's say this time around they've decided, well, because Alex was useless, didn't do any work, he'll have 1 apple, but for every 1 apple, Ben needs to have 3 apples in exchange for doing most of the work. So we've got that here. We've got our ratio. So the first step I want to look at doing is I want to form some fractions, just like I did before. So as a fraction, how many apples is Alex getting? We're going to add the two parts together. 3 plus 1 is 4. So the fraction will have a denominator of 4, and Alex's portion was 1. So Alex is going to get 1/4, which means Ben is going to have 4 as the bottom. Again, 3 plus 1. But this time around, Ben's portion was 3. So Alex is getting 1/4 and Ben is getting 3/4. So we're happy so far. Let's think of starting off with Alex's. We have 20 apples and we're going to times it by 1/4. You could put that straight into your calculator, or you could convert 1/4 into a decimal. Don't forget 1/4 is the same as 1 divided by 4. And you can put that into your calculator, and that would change 1/4. So it'll be 20 times 0.25. So hopefully you got that when you put 1 divided by 4 into your calculator. And when you do all of that, that tells us that Alex is going to have 5 apples. So we've got 5 apples for Alex. We can then do this subtraction. Don't forget, you don't need to do the second part of the ratio. We're just going to subtract. So we had 20 apples in total. We minused the 5 that we gave to Alex, and the remaining 15 will be apples for Ben. Oh, forgot the plural there, for Ben. And if you think of the numbers here, we've got 5 to 15. And what that means is, at the beginning, every 1 apple Alex got, Ben got 3 apples. So it makes sense that 5 times 3 gets me to Ben's number, which is 15. So that's example number 2. Our final example number 3, I'm going to make this deliberately a bit messy. So we're going to stick with Alex and Ben again. Let's say this time around, maybe the ratio from below, Alex was like, oh, that's a bit rough. I did more work than that. That's unfair. Maybe Ben's like, oh, okay, cool. I'll make sure you get 2. Every 2 apples, I get 3 apples instead. So let's change that to 2 to 3. However, in this case, let's say maybe Ben's friend Chris, maybe he drove, and we're going to give him some apples for the use of his time. So let's say, well, every time Alex gets 2 apples, Chris is going to get 1 apple just to help him out for petrol money. So even though I said before ratios tend to follow up in pairs, it can be 3 people, 4 people, 5 people. So the first thing I want to do, just like I've done in the previous examples, I want to start thinking about my fractions, because if I can get to fractions, I can navigate to whatever it is I need to. So we're going to start off with Alex, and just a reminder, I'm going to draw my fraction line, and I'm going to add up all of the parts to form my total. In this case, 2 plus 3 plus 1 is going to get me to 6, and 2 of them relates to Alex, which means Alex is going to get 2 out of 6 apples. And carrying that on, Ben is going to get 3 out of 6. And then finally, Chris is going to get 1 out of 6. So this one's going to be a bit more annoying, as I said earlier. So let's start off with the 2 out of 6. We're going to go 20 apples times 2 out of 6, which is the same as 20 times 2 divided by 6. And I put that into my calculator. I'm going to get a funny number. I'm going to get 6.6667. And that did keep on going with 6s. So that's a weird amount of apples for Alex. Let's do the same for Ben. And just a reminder, whilst we subtracted, we can only do that for the very last person. So we're going to have to use our multiplication for Ben as well. So we're going to have 20 times 3 out of 6. This one's a bit nicer, so that's going to be 20 times 0.5, which is going to be 10 apples. So that's a whole number. And then finally, we can subtract. We're going to have 20 minus 6.6667 minus 10. And when I do that, I'm going to get 3.3333, and that would have kept on going based on our fractions. So in this scenario here, what's happened is Ben, who's the middle person, he's going to get 10 apples. So that one's easy. So let's write that over here. Ben is going to get 10 apples. And this is where it's going to be tricky. The remaining 10 apples are going to be split up between Alex and Chris, but they can't have nice whole numbers. So what that means is Alex, he's going to have 6 2/3 of an apple. So they need to chop up one of the apples into parts. Alex will get 2/3 and Chris will get 1/3. So we've got apples there. And then finally, Chris, he's going to have 3 1/3 apples. Again, just a reminder, 1/3, they had to chop up an apple. So whilst this is the proper correct answers, I think in real life, I don't think they'll chop the answers up or the apples into thirds. Probably what would happen is Ben would get 10. I think Alex would probably get 7 because that's closest to 7. And then Chris would get 3 because in the real world, you're probably not going to chop up an apple like that. You probably just go, oh, close enough. So that wraps up our video. Hopefully you've got a good understanding of how to use ratios into splitting up into total. And just a reminder, that initial step of forming the fractions, I've circled them both on our screen. That's a really important step. If you can get that, I think you'll be able to get the rest. So thanks so much for watching. Now let's get into heaps of practice.